All right, here we go. We have Larry Lawton, former Gambino Mafia associate and one of the biggest jewel thieves in America, who was responsible for robbing over $20 million in jewels, who went to prison and is actually an advocate right now for prison reform. Okay, so this is your first time here, so I want to get into your whole story. So you were born in North Hempstead, New York, but you grew up in the Bronx.
Right. The hospital, North Shore Hospital in Hempstead, New York. And then I grew up in the Bronx, went to school. That's where I was starting my little criminal career, if you want to talk. I was very young. And then I moved to Brooklyn later in life.
Okay. And the neighborhood you grew up in, it was one of these areas where strangers and outsiders couldn't really come in.
Yeah, kind of like that. You know, it's a very close-knit community of Italian, Irish, German workers, mobsters, a lot of mobsters in my area. And it's Locust Point in the Bronx, which is right on the base of the Throgs Neck Bridge. And it's, to this day, it's a 4-block area. It's still the same way because you can't, there's only one way in and one way out. And it's right on the end of the East River, actually. Funny story. We used to swim in the East River, and there was a sewer out on the other side of the jetty, and literally shit would come out of that thing. And we used to belong to a Locust Point country club. We're swimming in shit. I mean, it was unbelievable. But we thought we were living in high cotton back then, you know. And that's back in, you know, when I grew up in the 60s and 70s, you know, late 60s and 70s.
Well, you had mentioned that when outsiders would come into your area and like go fishing, like under the Throgs Neck Bridge, that you guys would actually throw Molotov cocktails at them?
Yeah, you know, fishermen would come along the jetties and stuff and they'd get great striped bass there, actually. But we used to hang there and smoke weed and do all the stuff, do acid. But we used to take Molotov cocktails and throw them on the rocks right around them so they'd have to jump into the water. So they wouldn't want to come back there after you did that a few times. We were pretty wild kids, you know. But, you know, again, it didn't matter who you were. You could be black, white, Spanish, Hispanic, Italian, Irish. Didn't matter. If you lived in that area, you were good. If you didn't, you were no good. I mean, simple as that.
Okay. And your dad was a mafia associate.
Well, my dad worked in the unions. He was a union guy. Then he became a union delegate, and he was the foreman of the World Trade Center. The two World Trade Center. Matter of fact, when they went down, it was a sad day. I got pictures of me, Vlad, on top of the World Trade Center when the 103rd floor was the roof, because it went to 110 stories, but they tied us up as little construction workers. The World Trade Center was built from 1968 to 72. So in about 1971, I'm 10 years old, and we got pictures of us up on the top. They tied a rope, and we crawled to the end. And what he used to do, he had over 200 guys working the World Trade Center, and he used to pay off the mobsters. He literally used to go to the bars, and I'd go with him. It'd be envelopes full of cash, and he would go around and pay off the big people. That's how it got done. You know, the World Trade Center, both buildings were built in 4 years. Think of that. I mean, today you can't build a highway in Orlando, Florida. It'll take them, 6 years to build a highway. You're talking about two of the biggest buildings in the world at the time, 110 stories each, and they built it in 4 years. But they needed mob approval, and people don't understand how the mob works, Vlad. How it works is, let's take construction. It's not like they go in there and say, give me the money. No, they'll go in there, the construction, they own the construction companies, the unions are all controlled by the mob. So what they do is they go to the owners of the building or to who's building this building. You're going to give us $1,000 every week. What do you mean I'm giving you $1,000? You're giving us $1,000. We're going to make sure everything goes smoothly. And the construction goes, how construction works, and when a construction truck of concrete comes, it gets poured into a cone. In that cone, if it doesn't stay at a certain form and stuff like that, they have to send that whole truck back. So the concrete comes in, it has to be poured the right consistency. If it's not poured right, the trucks get pushed back. They come. All of a sudden, the whole job stops. Now, what people don't understand about construction, especially New York or any of the big cities, they have to have that job done by a certain date. If they don't have that job done, they get fined $5,000 a day or $10,000, whatever's in their contract. So all of a sudden, you stop a guy's job. He says, whoa, whoa, I need this concrete here. Hey, it's not us. We're the driver. It comes from here. Before you know it, because that construction company or that concrete company is controlled by the union, or the union, which is in control by the mobsters. So all of a sudden, this guy says, man, what is it going to cost for me? Pay the $1,000 every week, cash in an envelope, and all of a sudden, this job is going to go smoothly. And it goes with all the unions. And, you know, it's really funny, Vlad, because in New York, they literally put, they call it a street tax. They put that street tax in a bid. So when they bid, all of them do it. Every construction company does it, because if you don't, you're going to lose money on the job. And you don't want to lose money on the job. But that's my introduction into the unions and into the mobs, how they control the unions and how they control construction and everything else in New York City.
Right, because I guess you had mentioned that even Donald Trump, when he was rebuilding the ice rink in Central Park, he had to work with the Mafia to get that done.
Oh, absolutely, he had to work. The city, they don't give a shit. They ain't paying anybody. What does the city care? So city tried to build Woolman rink for 10 years. Couldn't do it. Trump knew how to work with the, you know, he was a builder. He knew how to work with the mobsters. And sure enough, he did. He built that in 6 months. 6 months. I wish he'd run the country like he ran his fucking construction company, but that's another story.